So we're just about going to do a recording about business networking, and Rob's going to interview me, and we're going to do a double broadcast to see what happens. Let's see what happens. Yes, Rob.
Yeah, so.
Okay. Here, Rob doesn't know what I'm doing.
Soon.
Rob's getting ready for the broadcast, and we've got 40 minutes.
Turn your mic on, turn your video on. We should be just about ready to go.
Oh, sorry, Rob. And I'll get that there. And how's that?
Right, now that's pretty good. It's looking okay. It's looking okay. So what I want to do, I got 20 questions that I've got outlined. They'll appear across the top. Oh, you won't fucking see a thing, will you? Because you're on Zoom.
Yeah. Hey, if I don't know the answer to the question, can I go skip? Because I'm not very good.
If you don't know the answer to the question, you can. Oh fuck! What can you do?
Rob, I was kidding. I know everything about.
Me to reword it.
No, I know everything about.
Ask me to reword it, rephrase it, and we'll go from there.
I know everything about business networking. I'm going to be fine. Yeah. It's just been a narcissist. Can't help it.
Yeah, well, that's fine because you're the owner of a networking company, etc., and I'm a person who has been to one.
Yep.
Whether that'll come out that we went to the same one, I probably will, but we'll see how it goes. So, right, we're ready to go. So sometimes these launch straight off, and sometimes they don't. So if I hit streaming, got everything else, I think. All right.
Okay.
Let's go. So this shouldn't load straight away. I should have to hit go live. I should hit go live. It should come up with an option for me to hit go live.
Hey, see how we're looking on the iPad.
Right. So we aren't live just yet, but we will be soon.
Okay.
So I'm going to hit go live and then we'll start. Just work out where the fuck my questions are. Okay.
What's your question, mate?
Right. Here we go.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rob, and tonight we have a special guest, Danny DeHeck, who is formerly of Elite 6 Networking. How are you, Danny?
Good. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for inviting me along.
So Danny has run a networking group of which I was a member of, but that ended around about 2 or 3 years ago. What we're going to talk about today is everything about network, pros, cons, why you would want to get into it, maybe why you wouldn't want to get into it, what the key learnings were, and coming from both the angle of whether you're a participant or whether you're actually running some kind of a networking event. Networking group. And I'll just shut that off, typing off to one side. So our first question, we'll get straight onto them, Danny. Why do you think people join networking groups? What's the big draw card?
I think main reason that most people join a business networking group is they're hoping they're going to generate new business. In fact, I had a slogan that used to be generate new business, meet new people. Meet new people, generate new business.
And I'll just
that's me.
Excellent. And essentially, when you first got into networking, how long ago was that? And what was the one thing that you were looking for?
I just wanted to build my network. I want to have businesses around me that I'd be able to use and recommend. I think that was the main interest about it, was to be able to find people that I felt I could know, understand their business, and maybe learn from other people's businesses.
Excellent. So it was, like you give your information, you get their information, and between you walk out and you are both smarter.
Well, you'd hope so. Yeah, but definitely. There's a lot of information that gets shared in business networking meetings that you may not even tell your clients, maybe sometimes your wife or your husband, if you're a lady, that you need people in, because a lot of the time you'll find couples, one couple will work a 9-to-5 job and the other partner will be working for themselves, so that sometimes don't feel like they can have a conversation with other like-minded business people.
Excellent, excellent. And I can say firsthand, there was a lot of conversation that I got. That was probably one of the highlights of me joining your networking group. Next question we're going to sprint on to. Have you noticed any standout benefits people got from the networking groups?
Well, I think they got to know people. I like to think of myself as the man about town, that I can walk down the street and bump into somebody I know, and I realize how big a network I've built myself. I love using my networking techniques to build relationships, have a listening ear, understand people's businesses, be more empathetic. So I think understanding how small businesses work, and they always say that what's the saying they say is when you work for yourself, you pick out what 12 hours a day you work.
I know. Well, look, I can tell that I met a lot of people at your networking group, and of course yourself. And like we're still talking, and I still talk with a lot of the other people that I met. So I've actually met a lot of personal friends out of the networking. I found it fantastic and valuable listening to how people solved problems. Our next question is, can you give examples of how these groups actually run their meetings? So how did you run your meetings?
It took a long time to get the most of the meetings are an hour long. They either have, some of the companies have a breakfast. We used to have a cup of coffee. So to have a venue that would allow us to just go there free of charge and pay for the venue by having a cup of coffee in the morning, it normally meant that it took
Mhm.
10, 15 minutes before we got the meeting underway. But I think that was, I've forgotten the question actually. Did I answer it?
Yeah, no. It's
Yeah.
like how did the hour actually run? Was it always an hour?
Well, no. If I ran a meeting for an hour and people didn't leave for sometimes half an hour or an hour after the meeting, I knew I ran a good meeting. And people would go through announcements. We would talk. We'd have somebody do a presentation, or we'd do what I call my 12 cards. And then we used to break into groups up to 6, and each person would get to talk for 5 minutes each. And that was the real point of difference with what I was doing compared to other companies out there. But after the meetings, people wanted to have a catch up, or they would arrange to have meetings throughout the week, and they'd take the use of saying, "Oh, well, after the meeting, we'll catch up," and you'd see them having a coffee meeting after the meeting, and that was what I loved to see. I really enjoyed seeing that happen.
Absolutely. I used to enjoy arriving in the mornings, and you saw a lot of friendly faces. You didn't really know what was going to come up through the hour, and then there were a lot of those car park chats that you have afterwards as well.
Yeah.
So that was great. I do actually miss that. The next question, is networking really that crucial for your career these days? If so, how come?
Yes, we after COVID kind of killed my business, and about a year ago, I suppose now, we actually joined a business networking group ourselves with another company. It was a local cafe, and I really enjoyed it. We have actually stopped it again. Just we couldn't sacrifice the time that it takes, but it is a commitment that you need. So a lot of people who are starting out don't know if they need an accountant, whether they need a lawyer to be involved, or they need to set themselves up as a business. So you get a lot of that free advice that you would get when setting up your business. So once your business is established, you might think you don't need it anymore, but most people do stay around. But that was a not quite true actually. There used to be a life expectancy of most people.
What was the life expectancy? By life expectancy, you mean how long the average person would actually stay in a networking group?
That's right. And well, there was a drop off rate. I used to, the way my company was structured at the beginning, I wasn't making any money because we'd give a month free. Then we'd give a month to somebody who referred somebody. And at the end of the day, I worked out once that I was only making a few dollars from each person that come and go. So I had to change my whole systems and processes so that I gave people incentives to feel like they're part of the group. There was a good synergy in all the groups. I had, I think, 12 different groups at one stage, and every single one of them had a different synergy. So when I had somebody new coming along, I would literally be trying to find the right group for them so they fitted in well, and then they would stay. And all my grooming at the start would not just be thrown out the window because they went for a couple of meetings and then decided it wasn't for them and they went off.
So you tried to match what the needs were of any person coming in to you, what you already knew of the existing groups, and roughly how long would a person stay
What used to be
on average?
used to be about 3.5 months, and then they think they've done it.
Okay.
They've got bored. Um, so after I finished, I did actually get most people staying for about 6 months. But then I got my diehards when I tried to kill my business networking company at the end. I couldn't get rid of 12 members, because it was part of their routine. I think I carried it on a little bit too long. And people, didn't want to give it up. And like you just said, you miss it. I miss it as well. I really did enjoy it. I was good at it. I knew how it worked. I was a good talker, and that's all part of being part of a good networker, really, a good listener.
Oh, I concur. I was always really surprised at how many people you could actually bring in to meetings. And I know in other organizations, it's quite hard to get people in, but you got a lot of people in and a lot of people did stay. And of course, some people stayed a very, very long time. What's better, face to face or connecting online?
Oh, definitely face to face. I'm a digital nomad and I love technology, and that's why I'm podcasting now, because I tried to, when COVID was happening, to run it over Zoom, and people just, I couldn't keep running the meetings. People would be on their phones doing their emails, listening in, and trying to keep the engagement going was just impossible. But when you're meeting face to face, you could definitely be engaged with people, and there's nothing more exciting than getting together, having a cup of coffee with your friends, and a few laughs, and hugging a few people, and that was all part of it. Really, I was a good hugger, good boy to hug.
I miss it already.
Give you a
I
hug
wish
next
we
time.
had a few people on here.
Yeah.
But next question: have you got any cool tricks or tips from these groups that surprised you? The things that you learnt over the years.
Well, people used to ring me up and they used to say they'd like to come along to my business networking, and they'd ask me what group had the most people. So I used to say, "Oh, just
Right.
look, for the first meeting, I'll get together with you. It'll just be you and me." And they'd say, "Just the two of us." And I go, "Yes, that's right." And then I say, "Well, if I get to know you and understand your business, I'll become a walking billboard for you. And just to let you know, I talk to 300 or 400 people a week. So it's not about numbers." And I think once people understand that, they go, "Oh, yeah, 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 yeah." But they all think that they can go to a business networking event, hand out a few business cards, and those people will use their product or service. And I used to always say to everyone in the group, just about every meeting, that you don't have to do business with people in the room. In fact, I'd rather you didn't. Put your business cards away, get to know each other, build relationships, and share your experience, knowledge, and skills.
I totally agree. I think that a lot of people were very open with their business knowledge and skills. And I think that the relationships were the things that I remembered and valued the most. But also because it got me thinking about my business, listening to other people talk about theirs and the problems that they had and the solutions. Next question. Ever skipped out on networking events? Why and what did you miss out on? So I guess this question would be, what do you miss by not doing networking right now?
Oh, it's just I mean, like, we used to run our meetings every week, and then people would say, "Oh, why don't you just do it every fortnight?" And because if you miss one meeting, you're actually going to miss the meeting for a month. And the things that would happen on a weekly basis, like if somebody wasn't there, and then all of a sudden somebody come along, they needed somebody who could do this, then you'd say, "Oh, Jim, oh, he's not here." And, you'd miss an opportunity. And I think every single business should build it into their weekly routine to have a morning that you give back to yourself or you give back to your business. It's not rocket science. It's a heck science.
I love that. I'm actually taking some notes here at the moment, and I'm going to write that one down specifically. A morning that you take or you give to yourself for your business. I do actually particularly like that one because I know that many of us who work for ourselves can get really busy being busy, and sometimes you keep on doing the same things just because that's what you used to. But one of the things that I used to love about networking is that you actually took time out of your business to work on your business or focus on your business. Next question. We're flying along here. Imagine if networking events disappeared. What do you think would take up the slack?
What would you do instead of business networking? Well, you can join. There is other forms of business networking, and I used to do about 15 different other events a week. So in total, I used to run, I don't know, around about 8 meetings myself for my business networking, and then I got involved in things like Rotary. I got involved in social clubs. I was organising dinners. I was going to quiz nights, and you could even be part of a running club, and you can do other forms of business networking. Because I like being that guy with somebody would say, "Oh, Danny might know somebody," and people would challenge me and say, "Do you know anyone that does blah?" Like, I need some new curtains at home, and I go, "Oh, funny enough, I do. I know a guy that hangs curtains for a living. He'll know somebody." And then I'd ring him up and go, "G'day, Jason. How you doing? I wonder if you know anyone that would come around and measure up curtains that would look after a friend of mine." And that's what I think. So there's other forms of ways of networking, but I think the creme of the creme was really important that you were loyal. And if somebody doesn't turn up at a business networking group every week, then would you recommend them? So you need to sort of find people that will actually are committed and can be regular, and it shows you what type of person you are. So I think that was the real important thing. All the other activities you can miss if you can't make it, but when it comes to regularity, being on time, the way you dress, the way you talk. I mean, if somebody comes to a business meeting and they swore, it used to stand out like a sore thumb. So you're sort of like on show, and it's a way to show people what type of business person you are.
I totally get that. I do know that it was a great way to actually get to meet people, not only around the table, but also, as we were saying, before the meeting, after the meeting. So some people put it on their business space, if you like, and then they kind of relax and you get to know both sides of people. I thought, well, that was fantastic. But it's also, as you say, it's probably business networking for me. I just wrote down a note there. It's a great excuse to get out and meet people. Like you don't have to have an excuse to go anywhere. You can just say, I'm going networking. And so you're at a group that is all there for a common purpose. To meet everybody, even if you wanted to just meet anybody and you don't really care about business, it would still probably work.
Yeah.
Next question. How has Facebook, LinkedIn, and other social media stuff changed networking, or has it?
No, I don't think it has. I mean, I used to tell people I'm a social media junkie. I've got like 7,500 people on my LinkedIn. At one stage, I probably had 15 to 20 Facebook pages, but you can't beat that. You connect with people with technology. You didn't used to like business cards. Oh, look, I've got my cards here with me. Funny enough, this was not planned, but this used to be my business card, and it used to have a name, a question on the back of it, and I had 120 cards, and on the front, I did actually have. I think that's upside down. I did actually have my name and phone number, but I didn't want to do business cards because I used to hate them. So what I used to do is actually send somebody a text, or I have a digital business card, and I'd say, "Oh, I've got my business card," and I'd send them a text. That way, I'd guarantee get their phone number, and I'd put their name and even take a photo of them in real time. And at one stage, I had an app that was owned by, it was scannable, and I think it was owned by Evernote. And you could basically scan somebody's business card, and then I'd hand their business cards back to them. And they used to kind of get a bit of insulted by that. But I used to love using technology to build a database on my phone, and I got up to 12,000 contacts on my phone at one stage, to the point it was slowing down
Wow.
my phone.
And no, I can visualize you doing that, and I think the good thing is that sometimes we have that brief meeting with a person, but if you're actually taking a photo of them, taking a photo of their business cards, you got everything you need, and you can just flick through your images later and reacquaint yourself, or even show that to someone else. One of the things that I have got from you is actually recommending people. I know how to do that. But because I've met the people and I feel that I know the people, I feel better recommending them. Next question. Do you think networking mixes up your work and personal life? How?
Well, I think one of my 12 things that I read out, which I did have to you, was I used to every week read out a mission statement. And one of them was, to build relationships, friendships, and create synergies where you could look for ways to work together with people. And I think I used to always stop when I used to say relationships, because everyone would say, "Oh, yeah, yeah, it's all about relationships." And I go, "No, it's all about friendships, having friends in business, and then look for ways where you can work together with people, form partnerships with people in some which way or form, and like there might be a florist in the group, and then you might think, well, actually, wouldn't it be instead of at Christmas time, maybe we could use the florist for our Christmas gifts rather than, we had a lady who used to sell chocolates, and they were gorgeous
Mm.
chocolates. So we used to do gifts of chocolates. At the end of the year, I used to buy a whole lot of the chocolates, and she used to show off what she was doing to the people. We just look for ways that we could work together. There was a lady that used to sell children's clothing. So then we knew that her clientele wasn't mum and dad, it was actually grandma and grandpa. So we'd look at her advertising and give her tips on how she could maybe go after that market, or we'd think of ways that we could maybe repurpose her market to using our services, and we might go after the same client base. So you just come up with great ways to actually think, oh yeah, we can work together with that. We might be selling completely different products, but let's see if we can help each other build our businesses.
Yeah, so that word synergies, I think, is really good. And just following on from what you said, I can actually remember that I got a few leads for certain jobs as well from other people, but also I can remember buying some of those chocolates, which I wouldn't normally have bought, but you think, hey, I get a chocolate and I get to hear about another person who is kind of on the same journey trying to operate their own business,
Mm.
just like me. Yes. What's the biggest challenge for these networking groups in being inclusive?
Inclusive, meaning one, you're talking about the industries in each?
No, like, for example, if you are trying to bring together the rich and the poor, male, female, old, young, all of the various groups that you find in society.
Hmm. Don't quite get that one. I think like the different types of people, how do you get them all to gel together?
Yeah, yeah. How do you make everybody feel at home?
Yeah, I think definitely got to make the group feel. You got to make sure they feel like the group's their own. Personality clashes was something people would often say to me. Oh, I don't like the fact that you know. I will talk about having the same, like having 5 real estate agents in the same group. So when I used to open up a new group, there would be a flurry of I used to have 6 industries that would be easy to get into the group to build the base of the group. And then I'd have a second tier and a third tier. But it used to be real estate agents, financial advisors, mortgage broker. I could start up a new group just by getting those 6 industries. But then people would say, "Oh, I don't mind if I'm not," you get a real estate agent, and then you get another real estate agent, and the second real estate agent says, "Oh, I don't mind if I have go to the same group. I don't have a problem with 2 real estate agents." And I used to say that every time, and I never did have a problem. But eventually, we'd be back down to 1 real estate agent. But I used to get the best real estate agent that had thick skin and was, oh, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but when people didn't worry about their competitors and realize that we all had one thing in common, and that we all have been in business and working for ourselves. 40% of all businesses have one thing in common. They all have to do administration, and that's their common interest. Whether there's 50 real estate agents in the one room, if there was, a lot of people would learn from having 50 real estate agents. They'd all learn from each other. But in the modern world, they don't do too well when it comes to managing how they feel about their opposition, so to speak. Because I don't believe in there's any opposition in business. I think you can be a window cleaner right next to the next window cleaner, and you will have your point of difference, or you might learn from the other window cleaner, so to speak. Yeah.
I like that phrase. You could, I guess, elaborate that there is no opposition in business. There's no opposition in life. We're all in it together. I really like that point that you made about focus on what we have in common, because I know that I could have excellent conversations and learn from people who were plumbers, architects, cleaners, like the whole kit and caboodle. And it was really interesting, the wisdom that I heard from all ages and all types of people. And it kind of, like reminded you, sometimes as we get older, we end up in our own groups, and we don't necessarily get out of those groups. But networking was a great way for me to do that and remind myself, like we're all in it together.
Yeah.
Excellent. How do you balance structure and just letting things flow in a meeting?
You've got to have structure. And it took me when I bought Elite 6, which was the only company I've ever bought in my life, but I liked it because I was a member for about a year. It came with franchise manuals, and it was a franchise. My job was actually selling franchise. So when I got the franchise manuals for running my company, I looked at this 47-page manual on how to run a meeting for an hour. So I kind of threw it over my shoulder and started again. But we broke the meeting into 3 major parts. And even if the meeting fell apart, as long as we broke into groups up to 6 and everyone got to talk for 5 minutes each, it didn't really matter. If the meeting regularly started late, I'd get people complaining that they have appointments. Some people were like military appointment keepers. And then, so I used to have to keep structure. And that was my job. So even though it was a relaxed, pretty easygoing atmosphere that we used to have, I used to always be having my eye on the clock. And if somebody was doing a presentation and they decided that they would steal a half an hour presentation instead of a 15-minute one, which was the allotted time, you had to come up with ways to manage that. And I think that's what I did well. But when I used to ask other people to run the meetings, they couldn't keep the structure because they didn't have the practice, and the meetings used to fall apart, and people used to complain and moan and bitch and moan, and then we poke them in the eye.
Yeah. Well, like you get all types. But yeah, I think people like familiarity. You want to turn up and know that it's going to start on time, end on time, and roughly what the structure is in the middle. And of course, if you get any surprises, you're just as likely to get a pleasant surprise as you are an unpleasant surprise. But although I can't actually remember any unpleasant surprises.
Yeah.
Next question. Have you seen any sweet collaborations or big ideas that came out of these groups?
Well, not off the top of my head. I think you just refine the person you are in business with the tips that people share with you. But I never really saw. We did have we had a lawyer that had 30 staff. His payroll was like 50 grand a month, and then he went from that to being an employment advocate, get rid of all his staff, and we watched him go through that journey. And now he's living a pretty awesome life, and you'll probably know who I'm talking about, Paul. But it's like it was quite nice seeing the guy going from the hustle and the bustle of a big lawyer firm back down to a one-man band and being a well-oiled machine. And I think that's what we would often look at people. One lady come to us once. She was selling wine, and she was getting 10% every time she sold wine. She was traveling all over New Zealand, and we said, "Are you making any money?" And she goes, "Oh, yeah." And I said, "No, are you making any money? Because the way your business is structured doesn't make sense to me." So she left our network and went and become a fitness trainer. Now she works out of her garage at home, just down the road from me. And she's a professional fitness trainer because she found something that she's passionate about. And then she started coming back to my meetings again. So sometimes I think that's the transformation I like to see is asking those questions that you wouldn't normally ask a business person, and finding out whether they're actually doing what they really want to do, and is there a better way of doing it, is more fun than probably anything. I can't think of any big company that's come out of my networking companies off the top of my head.
Yes, I think a lot of those conversations for any of the big ideas, it could be a couple of people or even more than a couple of people who actually get together. They may meet in a networking group, but then go and have those other meetings outside of the group, and any ideas can gel.
Yeah.
Because I know that I did work with a few other people on some ideas, and one of the things just that I learned is that some people are so knowledgeable. I found it very difficult to have a conversation with them. But I took heart from the fact that I actually knew these people and respected them and liked them and didn't feel stupid by by asking them really stupid questions, because they knew me and they had the patience to see me through. So to speak. Next question.
Okay.
How do these groups hook in younger people or new folk?
Younger people. Now that was interesting. I think the younger people we had that I can think of was actually real estate agents. And there was a company here in Christchurch that would recruit people and give them a retainer for the first 6 months, and then they're on their own. And these young people would set up social media accounts, Facebook accounts, and then try to set themselves up in business as a real estate agent. And I used to hate it. And with the amount of these young people that we put under our wing, I actually said at one stage, unless the person has sold 10 houses and we're over a certain age, I wouldn't actually take them on as a real estate agent, because this particular company was just using them to do their marketing, knowing that the young people are good on social media.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. So then we'd find those young people that we did let in, and we'd say, this ain't the business for you. You know, real estate is all about not what you know, it's who you know. And you don't know many people because you're friggin' 22 years of age. So, you know, and then we'd say to them, what are you passionate about? You know, what could you do potentially instead? And that used to be the joy that we do. I'd lose a lot of you know, because it takes a lot of energy to onboard people into your business networking group. And, you know, train them, you'd spend a lot of time with them, we'd set them up a business profile in the website, and then 10 minutes later they would give it up, and they'd be depressed about it because they haven't succeeded as a business person. Or the realities of actually being a business person is not as easy as it sounds. You know, it takes a lot of dedication, and you don't make the money. A lot of people think they can step out of a $80,000 a year income and start working for themselves and earn that type of money straight away. And I'm going, not likely. You know, unless you're selling something that's illegal. You know. Yeah.
Yeah. Like when I can get what you're saying there, because I know that some of well, probably most of the younger people that I met were actually, well, I either had ideas for businesses, but they hadn't actually started, or were real estate agents. You know, they were people that basically had aspirations
Mm,
and were on their way. And so they probably did learn from people there, but they probably came in with expectations that aren't necessarily met in a networking group.
mm.
Next question. Does being in different parts of town change how the networking works?
Yeah, location, location, location. That people used to think it did, but I would say no, it didn't. But I couldn't get people to travel across town. You know, and like I live in Christchurch, New Zealand, and there's 400,000 people in the city centre, so it's not really a big commute. However, I couldn't convince people. You know that I'd do a lot of groundwork getting people, and then they'd say, "Oh, whereabouts is it?" And you would say, "Oh, I don't think the furthest one. I think I had one in Hornby for a wee while. That's where you are." But then I found that Hornby would have a lot of commercial people, maybe, and I couldn't get the whole array of industries that I'd wanted to be at a meeting. But when I set one up in town, I'd get a lot of lawyers. You know, they'd all want to be, at the same meeting. So then I'd try for 7:30 meetings where you just get a coffee, and then we'd do a 9:30 meeting and double up on the venue because of location and give it another name. So but we used to call the groups like Papanui for Papanui and Belfast for Belfast. It was just easier. But some other networking companies used to give them all like tree names, and that might have been a better way of doing it. But used to used to sell the group to people by the name and the location, because they would not look outside the square. And then
And I can imagine, if I had been searching for one, because obviously I got into networking because of yourself, but had I actually been searching out, I probably would have gone on location to find one nearby. Or I may have thought, well, for what I want to get out of it, is there another location? Perhaps, like if I want to go into the middle of town and meet other people that are in the corporate world or anything like that, what kind of group would I want to be part of? What do I think I could get the most out of? Next question, what's the best use of technology that you've seen to boost networking groups?
I just think the simple cell phone. I think people talked about having Salesforce or content management systems. But I just used my cell phone and the contacts on the cell phone. Calendly was quite good for me, but probably not for everybody. I don't think people, like I used calendar appointments, trying to get people to use that technology was just, it didn't work. People didn't want to, make calendar appointments. So I'd often do little tutorials on teaching people how to make an appointment with people. And some people would just say, oh, no, I'll just write it on the back of a napkin here and I'll put it in my diary when I get home. And I go, what's a diary? But it was quite hard to get people to embrace technology. And as much as technology is a wonderful thing, honestly, I'm a tech buff. If I want to make an appointment, I'll pick up my phone. I'll say, make an appointment at 1 o'clock tomorrow morning with Rob. And if I have Rob's details in my phone, it will actually email Rob that appointment. But if I don't put Rob's
That's
details in
all
there,
automatic.
yeah, and then that's how when people don't get it, and I go, every single person I meet, I don't care who you are, even these people I go after in the scam world, I put their names and their phone numbers and their email into my phone religiously. Yeah.
Next question here. We've got 2 to go. Where do you think networking is heading in the next few years?
I miss my networking and I'm tempted sometimes to start it up again. But the problem is a lot of people don't help themselves. They're not, a lot of people don't know how to be regular at meetings. They don't know how to turn up at time. They don't even know how to pay a bill regularly. They don't know how to set up an automatic payment. So my company, that was the banes of owning a business networking company. So I don't actually know. I think we were really different and we were really successful at forming relationships with people. And the other networking companies, I'm not really interested in joining them. They force you to have a meal in the morning. They would tell you to stand up and do an elevator pitch for a minute. We never did any of that sort of stuff. And, so I don't know. I think I would love to actually probably start my company up again. And I reckon out of all the systems I've ever seen, I had the best systems. And we had, and I think I don't know what I'd do different. I just got sick of recruiting people to come along and meeting their expectations. I should come with a sense of no expectations and everything's a bonus. But sometimes people just had a preconceived idea of what they thought they were going to get. And they would turn up once, cause a whole lot of disruption, and then bugger off and we'd never see them again. So I tried to stop that from happening, Just my head.
Yes, I think that happens in most industries, for sure. Last question, lucky last. If networking was a movie, what genre would it be and why? Which I thought was a really kind of curveball question. But would you think it's a thriller, a horror, love story, comedy?
Yeah, I think it's an
What
emotional.
type of movie would it be?
Well, emotional. It is. I mean, a lot of people. I remember a lady turned up at the business networking meeting first time, and she just burst into tears. And everyone rallied around to see what she was about, and then she talked about that for years. She said it was just what I needed at the time. I needed someone to listen to me, to understand what I was going through. And she was having a bad day. She finished up being my girlfriend for a year or so, actually, funny enough. But at the time, but I mean, she always talked back about her first time at business networking, but what her business networking groups meant to her. And, it was really quite good, So I think Mills and Boons, I think you've got to have empathy. You've got to have a listening ear. You've got to let somebody drain you at a meeting. You know, they tell you all their woes. I mean, I used to talk to people all the time, and I'd come home and I'd just be exhausted because I've just given out all this energy, hoping that that would fill them up. But then eventually people would actually give back and listen to my woes, you know. So,
Excellent. Now we have just about running out of time. In fact, I think we are going to run out of time. So thank you very much, Danny.
woo, no worries, Rob. That's cool. It's Rob, you know, he's always a bit tight there with his internet connection there. We're trying to do that in 40 minutes on Zoom, which is quite good. So we actually got there, which is quite good. But no, it's excellent. So I did actually enjoy business networking. I really did. And you know, I was quite good at it. Instead of doing presentations each meeting, we used to have these cards. And I used to ask people questions to draw them out. So we'd ask some stranger to come up to the front and well, not a stranger, but somebody who hadn't spoke for a while. And to help the group get to know them better, we used to ask them questions. So I'm just going to read out a few of the questions. Would you rather trade intelligence for looks or looks for intelligence? And that would always, questions like that would always get a laugh and an answer. What's your biggest fear and why? Now, it wasn't business related, but people used to answer these questions and you'd be surprised. That wasn't business related, but it didn't matter. What would you sing at a karaoke night? How would you answer that? What's the longest you've ever gone without sleep and why? What are your top pain points in your business? And that would get people going, and other people in the group would go, oh, yeah, I have that problem as well. This is what I did. And then go, well, you guys need to get together and share that experience, knowledge, and skills with other people. And then if they didn't want to answer that question for whatever reason, the rules were that they could point to somebody else in the room and they had to answer it if they wanted to. And it was quite good. What is networking and how does it help you? So that would help us. That one there I didn't even like. What was life's purpose? It was too deep. What was the craziest thing you've ever done? If you would answer that question, like what would you have done? Where do you see business of the future? What is the distinction between feeling good in business and not feeling good? What is your favorite family tradition? How many languages do you speak? What's the most creative? What are you most creative with in your business? And that's basically that question. So I used to have like 109 of these questions. We started with 200, but we finished up refining the questions that we didn't want to answer. And these little cards actually really changed the whole perspective of my business networking company. And I introduced those cards because I used to have people who would say, yeah, I want to do a presentation about my business. Can you book me in? And you say, right, your next Tuesday, you can do the presentation. And next Tuesday on the way to the meeting, they used to ring me up and say, oh, I can't make it today. Can you push me back to next week? And then I'd have to go to the meeting and either run the presentation myself or ask somebody else that wasn't really prepared to run the presentation. So then I said to everyone, we're not going to do presentations anymore unless you want me to, and you need to commit to a day and we'll do it. But in the meantime, we're going to pick Roger from the crowd here and he's going to come up and answer 12 questions. And I get my 12 questions, shuffle the cards, and then I would give each person a card each in the cafeteria. And then I would look around the room while they were answering the last question, and I would point to the person randomly who would ask the next question. And then I'd walk around the room and take the cards off people because they would screw them up otherwise. And then I put them back in the folder. And then I would be able to gauge how long each question was taken. And, in 12 minutes would be a minute a card. So it wasn't a novel, but sometimes they would take longer. And then if it took longer, I would basically get the time back of the room by taking the cards off the people. It was quite a cunning way, but it really made it completely different. But the real point of difference to my business networking was that after the first 30 minutes are up, then I'd ask everyone to break into groups up to 6, and that's why I was called Elite 6 Business Networking. And then we'd have a timer, and each person would get to talk for 5 minutes each. And when they finished talking about their business, their week, their highs, their lows, their whatever it was, then the buzzer would go and they could actually pick somebody else to go next. And sometimes we'd get one person that would dominate all the conversation. So you had to learn ways of managing it. And it really was a unique business networking company. And I'd love to probably groom it up and sell it off as a franchise again. But the franchise model was meant to be New Zealand wide, and it was going to go big and all this sort of carry on. And I didn't really believe in it. I did have a few meetings in other centres like Queenstown, Auckland, and Dunedin, which were about 4 and a 6 hour drive. And I didn't run those meetings. I had other people running them who might have been in my business networking company in Christchurch and then moved away and then said to me, hey, I'm moving to Queenstown. Would it be okay if I run a business networking company under your brand? And I said, yeah, why not? So you know how it all works. And then I would go visit them every 6 months and the like. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, I hope those questions answered some questions you may have about business networking. And I've got, I'm not doing any questions here tonight, Rich. I'm just doing a natter about business networking. So hopefully you can hear me all good. I never did actually check my audio settings to make sure it's coming through the mic, and it is. So that's good. So you should have good sound today. But that was just a little snippet about business networking. I hope you enjoyed it today. All right. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye.